So in this video I'll be talking about my AS year and what improvements I could make to my A2 year based on the findings and situations I encountered. I'll be evaluating the coursework and the A2 trailer recreation, in which I recreated the film Annabelle. So, situations that I found challenging last year. The reason this is at the top is because it's the most significant and most challenging thing I found, and that's lighting. Lighting is very temperamental, and it's one of those things you need to play around with it a lot before you can get it right. In trailers, they can either look really bad or really good, depending on how you pull it off. So lighting is definitely something that I found challenging, especially in horror films, because it's quite low lighting. So you need to kind of put the light on the actors, so it kind of lets the viewers see what they're supposed to see. Something else that I found challenging was keeping on top of the work. This was because deadlines were set every day, or new pieces of work were set every lesson, and there's also some tasks I could have done, some extra research. So basically keeping on top of the work and individual tasks is what I found kind of difficult last year, and it's what I could improve for my A2 year. Finding the appropriate sound effects which weren't copyrighted. Now this is quite a significant issue and challenge I encountered last year. This is because using websites such as Freesound, which have free copyright, or they're not copyrighted sound effects, while it was quite good, you had to try and find sound effects which suited your trailer, and this was very difficult because there isn't as many sound effects as maybe on the whole of the internet, which I could just pull off a music video or something like that, or a sound effect off YouTube, but in that case the clip would most likely be copyrighted. So using websites such as Freesound and these just other copyrighted websites where you can use sounds for free kind of narrowed down the options we could use for sound effects and music. So what we found is that we had to base our trailer or our editing around the sound so that it would fit right, rather than trying to make the trailer and then put the sound on top. So another thing I found challenging was locations. For our location we planned on using a house and a car last year, so we needed someone to record a car going down the street, whereas no one actually learnt to drive, so this was kind of difficult, and we don't have full production sets, so that was also quite difficult. We had to take advantage of the theatre rooms in the school, which actually made the trailer quite impressive, and pulled it off quite well. Whereas using someone's house may have kind of ruined it. Okay, so how will I overcome these challenges this year? So obviously the first thing is preparation. We need to think about how we will go into our tasks before we actually do them. The second thing is testing before production. This includes lighting, obviously, so we need to just play around with lighting a lot instead of just fiddling around with it on set and wasting time. So that's a very important factor. Test different cameras, for example the Samsung and Sony. I had a camera called the Samsung Galaxy Camera. While this is a very high quality camera, it didn't work with dark conditions which horror films usually have, so especially our horror film, it was entirely dark, whereas the Sony camera picked up darkness quite well, but the quality wasn't as good. In the end we went with the Sony camera because obviously we could see the suspects or the subjects' faces better, whereas the Samsung camera couldn't really pick up much even with the lights on. Although if we're making a trailer next year or this year and it isn't in darkness, we'll probably use the Samsung camera because it has a quite high quality. So using the right location. So this is something we need to plan before we actually go into it, and we need to have a look around different places before we just dive into something. We also need to make use of the school, because there are some sets at school which we could use, or just some locations which might allow us to pull off some of the shots we need. So the next thing is So what is important this year? Again, preparation is important, like I said, playing around with lighting, making use of free periods and lesson time. So this is quite important because last year I didn't really have that many free periods and it was very important to make use of them. This year I have a lot more, and while I have a lot more, it would be quite a good opportunity to make use of these free periods and lesson times instead of doing work at home, because sometimes I might be busy at home and I might miss deadlines, which is one of the criteria where you have to meet deadlines. Also just focusing in class instead of just talking to friends. I need to focus more so I don't have as much work to do and be involved in a group. So this might involve coming together every week and discussing different ideas and seeing what things we could put into the group, what ideas we could put forward. This will overall just result in better marks because we might have better posts and just better organisation. Alright, so the next thing is the biggest factor that I learnt last year. The biggest factor I learnt is keeping on top of the work, and definitely the lighting. Like I said many times, the lighting, you can either get it really bad or like you can get it right and it will look really good. So that's something I have taken into account and I will test a lot. So I'll probably upload a post in the future, like something like lighting tests, so I can play around with the lighting and see what I could do before I actually go straight into the trailer creation. Okay. So how will this impact A2? It's taught me to stay on task and focus in lessons. It's taught me to be prepared. It's taught me to test, obviously, with lighting, with the different cameras. So we could do some test shots. We could do, obviously, like I just said, we could do some testing of the different cameras. So my Samsung character, whether it works better because it's got a high quality lens or it's got a high quality camera, or I could use the Sony camera because it picks up darkness better, and just overall completing coursework on time. This will just give me better marks on my meeting deadlines. So now I'm talking about the A2 trailer recreation. This was the Annabelle trailer recreation. So shooting and editing of the trailer, this is what I'm going to talk about. So it was difficult to match the sound with the clip, so a lot of the dialogue we tried to pick up we had to put over the top of me speaking, so I had to mime it and it was very difficult to match that. So basically what maybe I've learned for the future is that we have to base the clips around the sound, otherwise it will just ruin the whole thing. Something else I've learned is improvising. So something I improvised with last year is that we used a table as it was in the Annabelle trailer. We used a table as under the door, like a gap under the door. So basically it kind of gave the audience an idea that they were looking under a door when it was just a table. So that's how we can improvise, and just generally improvising on other shots, just seeing what we can do at the time. So how different the scenes were from our creation. For example, the layout of the house. So the layout of the house on the Annabelle trailer, that was very difficult to match because we don't have an exact replica of that house. So we kind of had to make use of what we had, e.g. improvising. So using the school or someone else's house, for example Riona's, we had to use that in certain cases, and I think we did quite well in improvising in that way. So what did I learn and how will this affect my trailer? So planning, obviously think about the sets beforehand and the lighting and the camera shots and angles, creating storyboards. We need to do a lot of research and planning before we go into the trailer. Sound effects preparation, so I could go onto freesound.com or try and find any other websites that have uncopyrighted sound effects and music, and from this just pretty much base the clip around the sound effects so it matches well. And just overall think, is it realistic enough? Is the lighting realistic? Are the shots realistic? Do we have the right mise-en-scène elements to our trailer? Okay. So any new ideas? So like I talked about earlier, the shot of Annabelle underneath the door, this is improvising. So yeah, I just talked about that. So we need to make improvising quite a key element when shooting for our trailer. For example, using a table to give the shot of Annabelle underneath the door. So, key facts to remember: preparation, editing sound, and getting the set right and accurate. So, like I said, just repeating myself, lighting, just different cameras. We need to just do a lot of research into what we're going to do before we actually go into it. Therefore, we might get a good mark. So that's my evaluation.